right around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. September 2nd, Brandon's World. I keep saying it. You'll be hearing me say it from the rooftops over the next couple of shows. September 2nd, we are back. We are going to be unveiling my full 2024 NFL predictions. I made my initial predictions when the schedule came out in May. Right now, as we speak currently, as of a couple weeks ago, July 11th, I started working on the article that I'm going to put together for the predictions as well, making some tweaks to my initial predictions in May based off the schedules, based off training camp injuries, based off potential preseason injuries or preseason storylines I did not expect. So all of that can be tweaked. But today I'm going to be going over what I believe are five, maybe unlikely, but not impossible bold predictions. Some of these I think are more possible than others. As a matter of fact, I think some of these will hit. I think some of these will not. As a reminder, these bold predictions are, again, things that can happen, but they won't necessarily will happen. It's going to take a lot for them to happen. A couple of my bold predictions a year ago was that Aaron Rodgers was going to win MVP. Could have been possible if he did not go down 4 snaps in the season. The other one, my number one that I did get right was that Bill Belichick was not going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots after the 2023 NFL season. So, spoiler alert here, I do have two bold predictions that have to do with coaches. The rest of them are going to have to do with either teams or players. The interesting part about this bold prediction is 4 out of my 5 predictions have to do with an NFC franchise. Only one of them this year has to do with an AFC franchise. And I could have made the same bold predictions a year ago, that Aaron Rodgers was going to win MVP. And I thought about it, but I wanted to have more fun. I wanted more out there bold predictions. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to go from 5 to 1. Brandon's World number 5 bold prediction for the 2024 NFL season is that Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys currently, he will be the first head coach fired. You take a look at that schedule for the Dallas Cowboys early on in the season, it's very tough. They have to go to Cleveland. They play the Baltimore Ravens. They play the Detroit Lions. Then they have a bye, and then they go at San Francisco. That is potentially 4 losses right there in the first 8 weeks of the season. And then you still have 2 games with the Philadelphia Eagles. You still have 2 games with the Washington Commanders, who I think, we'll talk about them here in a little bit. I think they could be a sneaky good team. And again, I think this team, with the losses of Tony Pollard, the loss of Tyron Smith at left tackle, the new rookie, left tackle and center. You got a new defensive coordinator, Mike Zimmer, who I think is a very good defensive coordinator, but I don't think he's as good as what Dan Quinn will bring in Washington. And the talk of Micah Parsons getting paid, and CeeDee Lamb getting paid, and Dak getting paid. It's a lot of distractions. It's a lot of circus around Dallas. And again, if something happens to CeeDee Lamb, especially in a contract year, Brandon Cooks is not a number 1 receiver. They still got Tolbert, and they still got the tight end there. But Jake Ferguson, the tight end. But they don't have a lot of great weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb. I think if there's an injury to the Dallas receiving core, they become a pop gun offense, a tough, rough schedule early. The Pittsburgh Steelers are also in there. They have to go to Pittsburgh. That's always a tough place to play. So Dallas starts 2-4, even 2-5. Mike McCarthy, who I think Jerry Jones considered getting rid of a year ago, may be gone by Dallas's bye in week 7. Brandon's World number 4 prediction for the 2024 NFL season. Jaden Daniels, not Caleb Williams, not Marvin Harrison, who are the 2 favorites, but Jaden Daniels, the rookie quarterback of the Washington Commanders, taking number 2 overall. He will win Rookie of the Year. There's all of this talk about Caleb Williams, and I'm on it. I understand it. I've said I've never seen a franchise take offensive talent and improve it, especially for a defensive culture with the Chicago Bears. It's a 180 from what they've done in years past. But will Caleb Williams live up to the hype? He does have a defensive head coach in Matt Eberflus. Will the new change at offensive coordinator with Shane Waldron make a difference with the additions of Keenan Allen and Roma Doomsday to go with DJ Moore on the outside, with that top 10 defense, with DeAndre Swift now at the running back position? Absolutely. Will Marvin Harrison be a day one stud in this league with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals? Yes, he will, and he will help the Cardinals win games this season, I believe. But I think this Washington Commanders team is in an easier division than Chicago's. They're in an easier division than Arizona's. I already said I think Dallas takes a step back, and what we've seen on the Hard Knocks, off-season version with the New York Giants, they look like a disaster. We saw the Houston Texans last year, right? Rookie head coach, defensive coach, but they had a star-studded play caller in Bobby Sloan. The Washington Commanders have brought in Cliff Kingsbury. Was not a great head coach at Arizona, but we know he can call plays. He called them last year for Caleb Williams at USC. We know they also brought in Austin Eckler, the running back position. They brought in the former Dallas center to play center for them. They still have that great defensive line with Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, even though they traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. And I think with the new ownership, new head coach, new play caller, new quarterback, there's this optimism among Washington. And with the Commanders having a third place schedule and Dallas declining, in my opinion, there's a world where they win 9-10 games, be a wild card team, and I think that would be enough for Jane Daniels to win Rookie of the Year, especially if Arizona and Chicago do not make the postseason. Brandon's World number 3, bold prediction of the 2024 NFL season. The worst team in the National Football League, the team that will have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, will not be the New England Patriots. It will not be the New York Giants. It will be a team from the NFC. It's a team from the NFC South. No, it will not be the Carolina Panthers. New Orleans. I have no idea what the hell you are. They have Derek Carr, who again went from Oakland to Vegas in the move. He went for a lot. He's been with tons of head coaches throughout his career, and then he goes to a relationship that he knew well in Dennis Allen in New Orleans. And it was, in my opinion, an abject failure. And he did not look like himself last year. Michael Thomas is no longer on the team. Alvin Kamara may still have personal issues to deal with, and he looked a step slow last year. Outside of Chris Olave, they don't have a ton of weapons offensively. I couldn't even tell you who their starting tight end is right now. The Taysom Hill gimmick is over. I think the league is caught up. I think their defense was not as good as a year ago, and they're getting older. Cam Jordan is probably in one of his last few seasons. I just don't know what their identity is, especially offensively. And I don't know how many points this team is going to score. And I just think this team needs a full reboot. They drafted Spencer Rattler on day 3, 5th round of the NFL draft. I would give the kid a shot because I think he's got some potential. But I think this Saints team, even in probably the weakest division in the NFC, I think a lot like the Carolina Panthers, who I think will improve under Dave Canales, and they made some nice, additions offensively to help Bryce Young out. I think the Saints finish not only last in the NFC South, but they will be with the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Now, number 2, we are sticking in the NFC South. We are sticking with quarterbacks. We're going to talk about Jane Daniels, my thoughts on him winning a Rookie of the Year. We already talked about, you guys know how high I am on Caleb Williams. You guys know about Bo Nix in Denver. I think he could turn it around. We'll see what Drake May does in New England. J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. I want to talk about the most controversial pick of the first round of this year's draft. Michael Penix. Because the Brandon's World, number 2, bold prediction for the 2024 NFL season is that Michael Penix will play more this season than Kirk Cousins. This is a very bold prediction. I get it. And a lot of people, me included, when the announcement of the pick went down on that late April night, Thursday night NFL draft, we all scratched our head and said, what? They just paid Kirk Cousins. But as I've been explaining here, when I've talked about Atlanta with guests that I brought on here over the last few months, that if Atlanta's going to do what we think they're going to do this year, which is win 9-10 games, compete with, and maybe overtake Tampa Bay in that NFC South division. If Kirk Cousins is as good as he was in Minnesota, with you can make an argument better or at least equal weapons with Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, a real offensive coordinator not named Arthur Smith, Zach Robinson coming over from the Sean McVay tree, similar system to what Kevin O'Connell runs in Minnesota. So if all the stars align for Atlanta, and they're very good, if they win the division the next 2 years, Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles. And if they win the next, 10-7, 10-7 the next 2 years, they're not going to be in position to draft a quarterback very high. And while Michael Penix is coming off, 2 injuries himself in college, he's a very accurate thrower of the football, and he's got a great offensive line behind him. And we don't know how an older Kirk Cousins is going to be coming off a torn Achilles. He may not be the same, and he may not be ready, as what Atlanta wants to start the season. There is a world out there where Michael Penix by week 3 or week 4, especially Atlanta that has a rough early schedule. You're talking about the Steelers in there, at Philadelphia, home against Kansas City. If they start 0-3, which against those 3 teams is very possible, the Arthur Smith revenge game as well against Atlanta as Pittsburgh's OC week 1, we could see Michael Penix on the field by week 4, and I think he would play more snaps this year than Kirk Cousins. Now, my number 1 bold prediction for the 2024 NFL season is this will be Mike Tomlin's last season as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin took over for Bill Cowher after the Pittsburgh Steelers won Super Bowl 40 over the Seattle Seahawks. We are now entering Super Bowl 59. So that's, 18, 19 years that Mike Tomlin has been at the helm in Pittsburgh. Oh, and by the way, he has not had a losing season. The closest he's had to a losing season is back when they had 16 games. He went 8-8, I believe, twice. Made 2 other Super Bowls, Super Bowl 43, won it, Super Bowl 45, lost it, and is obviously looking to get back there. Now, we said we don't know what the Steelers' offensive identity is, even with bringing in Arthur Smith. Who is their quarterback? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it Justin Fields? And when you look at the division they're in, if Lamar Jackson is healthy and Joe Burrow is healthy and Deshaun Watson gets back to seemingly any sense of Deshaun Watson was with the Houston Texans, they are 4th in their division at quarterback. And their schedule is absolutely brutal. The back half of it, week 11 on, they have to play all 6 of their division games, which is very likely they will split. They have to go to Philadelphia. They have to host Kansas City. And they also have to play the Houston Texans. With all of that in mind, I think there's a real scenario they finish the year 3-6, which means to get a winning record to start, you have to start the year 6-2. I don't think that's possible. And I think that there's a reason why, even though Mike Tomlin signed this contract extension, he signed it later on than usual. And I said that in sports, I don't give a bleep about contract extensions. We've seen guys sign a contract extension, and 6 months later, they're out the door. And again, it just feels like the Steelers' culture is built on defense and toughness and run the football. It's not 2024 NFL football. And a lot like Bill Belichick in New England, I think it's just time for Pittsburgh to do a complete culture identity reset and move on from Mike Tomlin. Even though he's a great coach and he gets the most out of his guys, ever since Big Ben has retired, it's been a revolving circus of the most important position in sports. And when you have a defensive head coach, that's not surprising. So to recap, these are my 5 bold predictions that could happen during the 2024 NFL season. Number 5, Mike McCarthy of the Dallas Cowboys, the first head coach fired. Number 4, Jaden Daniels is the rookie of the year. Number 3, the worst team in the NFL will be the New Orleans Saints. Number 2, Michael Penix will have more starts and more snaps than Kirk Cousins. And number 1, Mike Tomlin, after this season, will not be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like that clip from the Brandon's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.